لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، خالق السماوات والأرض، إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، رحمة للعالمين، طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين، ورحمة الله على محبيهم، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقاتليهم وغاصب حقوق حقهم ومنكر فضائلهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, please. Our respected sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullah. In our discussion yesterday, we were concluding, we had ended with the importance of the salat, the prayer, and how the Prophet of Islam had said that as-salatu mi'raj al-mu'min, the prayer helps us ascend, is an ascension, gets us higher and higher if it is prayed properly, if it is recited with the intention that Allah Ta'ala wishes us to recite it with. And a verse in the Holy Quran in Surah Ankabut mentions, Inna salati tanha anil fahshai wal munkar. That the prayer alone, the prayer is something that will protect us from evil deeds, ignoble deeds. And the prayer has that ability, has that potential of giving us the heights that we, inshallah, want to strive and should be striving towards. It has the potential and the ability to prevent us from evil, to prevent us from haram deeds. The salat is actually something a lot more powerful than what perhaps we may have intended it. And it's sad to see, and I'm sure, inshallah, I'm hoping it's nobody here, but a number of members of our community have often debated, discussed, and felt that salat takes up a lot of time. I don't have time to pray. I don't want to pray. I don't pray. And in some cases, some people are not even shy about admitting the fact that they're not praying. And the danger in that, I'm not going to talk about the adhab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a hadith that just in passing I'll mention that the Holy Prophet of Islam has been quoted as saying that anybody who intentionally misses one salat, intentionally misses one prayer, it is as if يُقَتْلَهُمْ سَبِّينَ أَنْبِيَاءَ أَوَّلَهُمْ آدَمَ وَآخِرُهُمْ أَنَا. Somebody who misses, for example, they slept in Fajr, they didn't keep their alarm, they intentionally slept in, they delayed their Dhuhr, they came home from school and they wanted to watch television, it was time for Maghrib and their favorite shows were coming, their favorite sitcoms were coming, and they didn't pray. Missing, I'm not talking about somebody who doesn't pray, I'm talking about missing intentionally one prayer. The Prophet has said, it is as if you have killed 70 prophets, Sabina Anbiya, awwaluhum Adama wa akhirum ana. As if you have killed 70 prophets, the first of whom was Adam, the last of whom was myself. Just an importance of the salat. We take it insignificant, we take it. It is said that the person who again deliberately ignores the salat, doesn't give importance to the salat, the sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, and if anybody wants any references, I'll be happy to give them to you afterwards at another time. As you know, right after the program I leave, but at any time you want to sit down with me afterwards, I'll be happy to give you whatever references you want, because whatever I say here, I cannot say it without having my dalil, my dalail, the evidences and the proofs. The sixth Imam has been quoted as saying that if one commits fornication in the Kaaba, in the Masjidul Haram, they will still not be so far away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as somebody who ignores one salat. The hadith are very profound, very powerful. There's actually a number of them. I'm only giving you I'm only skimming the tip of the iceberg, you can call it. And the Imam, the same Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, has been quoted as saying that don't consider your prayer insignificant. The prayer of yours, this prayer, the salat that you're reciting, the salat for which the Quran Majid, the Holy Quran, in more than 80 places in the Quran Majid, in the Holy Quran, more than 80 places, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Aqimus salat, uphold the prayer, uphold the prayer. Afterwards, it's usually followed by wa'atu zakat, and give the charity, give alms in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Aqimus Salat has a very important significance. And people often ask, well, what is it? What does it matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does it matter to Allah if I pray or not? Does He become more powerful? Na'udhu billah, astaghfirullah, God forbid. Does He become more power? He's got more prestige, more importance, just like political leaders have, just like, we all want everyone to support us and follow us. And is that what it is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does it matter to Allah? Of course you'll say it doesn't matter to Allah. It doesn't matter whether I pray. The salat is for me. And the fourth Imam was asked a question that many of us probably ask ourselves as well. And we will go to the Shaykh or the Sayyid, we will go to our scholars. There are many students of the Hawza who are here. Many of you might have been approached. We always have the question, did our prayer get accepted? Is our prayer qabool? Was it accepted? Is it accepted? Our fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn Hussain Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, has actually given an answer to that. He says, if you want to know about the acceptance of your salat, about the acceptance of your prayer, if at the time of Salatul Fajr you recited your 2 rakats, and the time of Dhuhr comes a few hours later, in between that time, in between those hours from your Salatul Fajr till the time of Salatul Dhuhr, if you did not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you did not do something haram, if you did not say something haram, if you did not hear something haram, you did not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any shape, way or form whatsoever, then understand your Salatul Fajr is accepted. From Dhuhr to Asr, if you did not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your Dhuhr is accepted. Finish. Kabul. From Asr to Maghrib, if you did not do something against the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a stamp on your Salatul Asr. And that chain continues. What the Imam is telling us is that the Salat should have a profound impact, an effect on our lives. It should have that ability. It has to have that ability to be able to influence how we are. Brother just mentioned, Brother Ahmed just said that, don't be afraid. Don't be shy about who you are. If you pray, you pray. If you're a Muslim, you're a Muslim. If you're a follower of Ahlul Bayt, be pleased with it, because we have a message from the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam that is a profound, a beautiful, a blessed message, and we should actually be proud of holding that flag up as high as we can. We should be pleased that we are followers of Ahlul Bayt, that Allah Ta'ala gave us the tawfiq, the ability, the heart to be able to follow Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. The sixth Imam, when he was in a state when he had just been poisoned and he was between consciousness and unconsciousness, for a few minutes or seconds, he was conscious and then he went back into unconsciousness. In those few minutes that he was still conscious, he told his family to tell the Shia, tell the followers, tell the believers, don't consider the prayer lightly. Our shafa'at, our intercession will not be for the one who has considered their prayer as insignificant. It will not be there for those who have not cared about their prayers, for their salat. The same Imam in an earlier hadith actually says, he says, do you know what your prayer is? Do you know what your salat is? This salat that you are reciting, when you are in your grave and the grave will be dark, the salat will become a light for you. When the grave will be hard, the ground that you are laying on is hard, the prayer will become a mattress and a pillow for you. When it is hot on the day of judgment, when the sun will be scorching and burning, the salat that you have recited, the prayer will become an air conditioning for you. When you are crossing the Pul Sirat, the bridge that is thinner than a hair, hotter than fire, sharper than a sword, the fire of Jahannam will be below. Everybody has to cross that bridge. On that sirat, the salat will become a balance that will help you through. When your good deeds are not as heavy as they were supposed to be, your salat will become a weight for your good deeds. And when you are about to enter paradise, the door of paradise will be locked. The door of Jannah will be locked. Your salat will become a key and allow you to enter Jannah like that. not an insignificant thing. The prayer is a very powerful tool, a very powerful weapon that we have. That Allahu Akbar that we start with, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh that we end with. Everything in between has a very profound, powerful, and an important meaning. When we are standing before Allah Ta'ala, I mentioned yesterday, the salat takes us high, it takes us far. We are saying Allahu Akbar, we are saying God is the greatest. Allah is Akbar. By virtue of saying Allahu Akbar, we are actually saying, I am Asgar.
Wait, who was the first Imam that survived?
The first Imam was Imam Ali. The only Imam that is surviving till today is our 12th Imam, Imam Al-Hujja, Ajjalallah Ta'ala Dhuhra. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. The other 11 Imams did not survive in this world. They were poisoned or killed on the battlefield, as our Imam said, the Shuhada that we are remembering now. Thank you for the question. So we see that the prayer, the salat, when we say Allahu Akbar, when we're about to start the prayer, they start the salat, and we are going in the presence of Allah Ta'ala, it is a state where, if you recall the history, early history of Islam, in one of the early battles, some have said the Battle of Badr, one of the enemies had fired an arrow into the foot of Ali ibn Abi Talib. An arrow was in the foot of Imam. Now, the arrow has got that little, the flower part. Once it goes in, it opens, and it's very, very difficult to get it out. When the people tried to take it out, it would not work. It was causing too much pain for Amir al-Mu'mineen. You can imagine the anxiety that the Imam was feeling. They went to the Prophet of Islam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, what should we do? How do we get this arrow out of Ali? The Prophet smiled and replied, wait till he starts his salat. As soon as he starts his salat, he says, Allahu Akbar, then go. Because when Ali alayhi salam says Allahu Akbar, he means Allahu Akbar, and he goes into a whole different realm. His body is on this earth, but his heart and spirit are in the heavens. They took it out as soon as the Imam started his salat without any Imam feeling anything. And there are countless examples of the Imam and all the Aimma alayhim salam, peace be upon them all, whereby we find that their attention to their salat was such that they didn't realize what was happening around them. Imam Baqir had fallen when he was a baby, had fallen into a well, a pit. When the fourth Imam was doing his salat, the Imam did not even notice what was happening. His son could have been killed. He says, the one for whom I'm doing the salat will look after my son. And so we see that every Imam have given us example of what the salat can do, what the prayer can do. When you're standing, you say Allahu Akbar, and you're standing in that position. You know what that position is called, right? All of you have, I'm sure, studied it, read it. It is known as the position of Qiyam. Qiyam, standing up. The position of Qiyam, when we're reciting the two surahs, the Sawar, that position is reminding us of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Because in the salat, as soon as we say Allahu Akbar, we are told that we shouldn't unnecessarily move. You can't look around, you can't move. We have people who have this rocking chair habit when they're doing their salat, right? I don't know if you've noticed any people like that. They're just moving back and forth as if they're on a rocking chair because they're waiting for the surahs to finish. And, they're twiddling and twitching and itching and scratching and everything. And you know what? As much as possible, you're supposed to be standing still. As much as possible. It is mustahab to be looking at the mohar, to the turba, on the ground. It's not wajib, but it's recommended, just so that you can focus. When you do that, you are reminding yourself that on the day of Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be in charge. He is Maliki Yawmid. Maliki Yawmid. He's the owner, the master, the all-powerful on the day of judgment. Nobody else will have any sort of power whatsoever. We will be standing still, completely still in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are practicing from now. We are practicing from now 5 times every day. In every salat, we are standing still. That is what Qiyam is. And then we say, after the 2 surahs are done, we say Allahu Akbar, we go into ruku. We are in ruku where we are told, for at least the boys, the men, we should be parallel to the ground. The ladies are slightly, it is mustahab for them to be slightly upwards. We are parallel to the ground. Our back should be parallel to the ground. My madrasa teacher, I remember the good old days, he would put a glass of water on our backs, on the boys' backs. If that glass of water fell, we got a ruler. Not ruler as in a mass. Good whipping. Those days it was allowed, right? There was no 911. Anyways. So that's how we learned. That's how we made sure that our ruku was impeccable. We made sure that if it was standing, you could put a feather on there and it won't fall off, because after all those beatings, I learned really fast. Noticed after all those beatings, that means I didn't learn so fast or easy. And so we see that the ruku does that. Then we go into the prostration. We go right down. Our face is on the ground. Our forehead is on the earth. The earth. That is why the Ja'fari Shia, we do sajda, we do the sujood on earth, something that grows from the earth that we don't eat or wear. And the reason for that is because that is something from the earth that the Prophet also did his sujood on, his sajda on. And we say, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamd. The Prophet taught us that the closest position we are, the time in the salat, the position, the moment we are the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when we are on the sajda. When the face is on the ground. This face that is supposed to be the most beautiful part of our body. This face that we spend countless hours on making sure that everything is trimmed, everything looks beautiful. You know, the application of this and that and the other is perfect. Every hair has been combed the right way and everything is done. You know, when I sometimes read the biographies or sometimes read stories or things about, you know, these actresses and actors and models and, you know, what have you. And I see that, you know, they were saying, you see the articles, on average, 4 to 5 hours a day they will spend on their face. It must be one heck of an ugly face to have to spend that. That's not my business. That's not my problem. Alhamdulillah, Allah has given us natural beauty. Okay, one salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. I mean, if you have to spend 4 or 5 hours on anything, there's a problem. Either there's a problem with your face or there's a problem with why you're spending that much time on it. Okay, what happens is that the face, even for us, we try to keep it as nice as possible. We don't want to be, you know, going around looking like a gorilla or something. We want to look as pleasant as possible. We try that. We, you know, if we have glasses, if we have a beard, we want to trim it and make it look and you know something? The Prophet has not discouraged that. The Prophet has actually encouraged us to look decent. Not to make ourselves attractive for the opposite gender necessarily, but to make ourselves attractive or make ourselves presentable for ourselves, of our own selves, okay? Because if you do it for somebody else or something else, there's certain criteria which I don't have the time to get into now, but this is what So if we spend hours, we spend loads of time improving and looking after this face, and only our community, the followers of Islam, are the only ones who will actually go to a state on a daily basis and have that same face on the ground. And the Prophet said, when you have put your face on the ground, this most beautiful part of your body, it's on the ground, you are the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which nobody can imagine or appreciate. Yani you are elevating yourself when you're putting your face on the ground and saying, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih. The fourth Imam was asked, Yabna Rasulullah, everything else is one. You do one, there's one ruku in one rakat, one qiyam, and you know, there's a qawud in the second rakat. Why is there 2 sujood? Why are there 2 sajdas in every rakat? Mawla, explain that. The Imam explained it very beautifully. He says, do you realize when you've put your face on the ground, you come up and then you go back down. You're actually symbolizing the fact that you have come from this earth, you come into this world for a little while, and then you will go back into that same earth that you came from. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Salam. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you. May Allah bless you, inshallah. You have come from that earth, and it is mustahab to do what? To recite Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayhi, or astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayhi, and then go back. It is mustahab, sunnah. And in that time, that is symbolizing, that is showing us that when we come into this world, what we should be concentrating on is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayhi, because eventually we'll go back to that earth. Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamd. You see what the salah teaches us? This is from the spiritual angle. There was one colleague of mine, he passed away some years ago. He was an elder, he was almost a teacher, I could call. He was from the place called Lucknow, India. His name was Marhum Maulana Firoz Haidar. And he used to explain, now I'm going to be clarifying one thing. In many of his lectures, he would actually talk about the physical benefits of Salat. Now, I talked about from the spiritual angle, the Ruhani level. He would talk about physics. He said, you know, when you're standing straight and when you're prostrating and when you're going into ruku, all these stages, there are certain blood flows that happen, certain stages of meditation, and certain benefits that the blood flow does, the exercise that you're getting. You know, when you're standing up in qu'ud and you're going back down, he said there's a certain exercise that every Muslim gets, whether they realize it or not. And the reason why I said that, you know, he mentioned this in his teachings, was because as Muslims, one thing to remember, we have two aspects of every ibadat, every act of worship we perform. Every act of worship has got two, for example, benefits. One is the physical benefit, one is the spiritual benefit. Same thing when there is the muharramat, the things that are forbidden by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a physical reason why that something is forbidden, and there's a spiritual reason why it's forbidden. When we do our actions, we are told to do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for any benefit. You're not supposed to fast because you want to lose weight because those 11 months have been really massive and you've become massive. Huh? No. Then the fasting doesn't have that power of the weight. Okay? And if I do fast for the reason of losing weight or trying to cut down my food intake, well, not going to get the thawab for it. Not max. Because if I stop drinking alcohol, because I read an article that said that, you know, one drink of alcohol, one glass of booze will cause 10,000 brain cells to die. Oh, I better stop. Or I'm a new driver, and they say that, you know, a new driver, even a dot of alcohol, you will have your license suspended for what, 30 days or something? I can't remember what's the new rules. Alhamdulillah. 90 days. Alhamdulillah. See, I was a few years before that, so I got my license a little while ago, right? Just a couple of years ago, right? Anyway, so basically, if I stop drinking because of that reason, then on the day of judgment, when the divine reward, the thawab is being distributed, I won't get thawab, I won't get the divine reward for refraining from alcohol because I didn't do it for the sake of Allah. But if I refrain from alcohol because Allah Ta'ala told me, then I will save my brain cells, inshaAllah, bi'idhnillah, unless something else dumb I do. But I will save my brain cells, and on the day of judgment, I will get the full thawab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I do my salat properly, or if I fast in the month of Ramadan al-Sharif properly and all the other mustahab fasts during the year, I fast for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will get the worldly benefit as well. I might inshallah end up losing a bit of weight as well, but that was not the intention with which I did it. The intention was the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is where our deeds become complete. When we act and do something solely, only for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for any other worldly benefits, not for refraining from the worldly harms, but it's done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then you benefit and you feel that salat will reach its pinnacle. And you will feel the salat reaching its pinnacle. And if you have somebody, maybe a friend or somebody, you know, in a couple of days, we're also going to be talking about our responsibilities while Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Dhuhura is in occultation. And in one of those things I'll be mentioning, I might repeat myself, so please bear with me. But one of the things that we see is that perhaps I might have an illness, a spiritual illness, whereby I make my salat late. I don't wake up or I can't wake up for Salatul Fajr, whatever. One of you who become the partners for Imam Mahdi's sake, the girls amongst themselves, the boys amongst themselves, have teams, have teamwork, and encourage each other in spirituality. We do so many other things together. There's an assignment at school, we'll team up with our best friend. Let's help me with this assignment, I'll help you with it. Somebody's weak in math, you tell your buddy, hey, listen, you're strong in math, I'm weak in geography, I'm strong in geography, you're weak in let's work on each other and help each other. The same thing we need to do spiritually. If you know that I have an ailment and I can't do something, then you encourage me. Let's say I don't recite Quran for weeks on it at a time. You encourage me to do that. Because that's one of the qualities of those who will be Ansar al-Mahdi Ajjallahu Ta'ala Dhuhuru, that they will encourage each other in Amr bil Ma'ruf and they'll help refrain each other from Amr bil Ma'ruf. Aw Nahy anil Munkar. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. So this is known as the purity of our deeds, the purity and the importance of our deeds. And that purity was what Imam Hussain was talking about on the plains of Karbala. When he left Medina, if you recall my early first or second lecture I mentioned, the Imam left the city of Medina telling his brother Muhammad Hanafiya that I'm leaving because the ummah of my grandfather has forgotten to do good deeds and encourage each other in good deeds. They have left Amr bil Ma'ruf, they have left Nahy anil Munkar. That is why the society corrupted and rotted in the way that it had become 50 years after the Prophet's demise. What had happened at the time, within 50 years, not even a century had passed, about half a century, and the people had gone so far away from Islam that Yazid was able to bring new and completely adulterated things in Islam that people would not even recognize that this is the religion of Allah. This is the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what happened is because the community gradually, slowly left their wajibat. They left their ibadat. They didn't give importance to their salat. They didn't give importance to their obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the Imam stood and shook the entire world by doing what he did, by laying his life down, laying down the lives of his family members and friends on the plains of Karbala, sacrificing everything and anything that he had so that people would remember once again that everything we do is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a reminder that Allah ta'ala is the Almighty, and our deeds will be judged on the intention with which we perform them and the actions which resulted from that intention, inshallah. We ask Allah ta'ala to accept our good deeds, make us closer to Him, return our Mawla Imam al-Hujjah, protect our ulama, the maraja, the scholars who are serving while the Imam is in occultation, inshallah. And we ask Allah, we beg Allah to protect our iman and our taqwa, for there are so many challenges around us. We ask Allah for that protection, inshallah. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. If I can have one loud salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, followed by a Fatiha. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala.